All right, Aldo, we're all set, man.
Okay, thank you. Hello, we are uh, CIT in CIT 325. We are just Aldo Fernandez, this is my name, Josh Eggers and Kyle Smith, and we are going to talk about some topics. Here I'm going to talk about understanding and declaring using user-defined exceptions. There are three kinds of exceptions in PL SQL. They are internally defined, where they are system errors, and they are defined by Oracle. The other are predefined, and they are really common, and we are going to talk about that later. But we are going to talk about here about user-defined, and those are logical errors which we define as users, and we raise them. So as I told you, the exceptions are predefined, and they occur when we are operating with PL SQL block. Some of them are named by user or by Oracle, as I told you before, and the ones that we raised, they are called user-defined. We have to explicitly call them, declare them, and then use them with a raise command. A user-defined exception must be declared and then raised explicitly, as I told you, but something that is called after that is a routine that is going to happen after we raise the exception. Let's look at an example here. The structure to declare exceptions is like this. We have to declare first all the exceptions that we want to catch. Then we start with the begin, you know how to do that. And then we have to handle the exceptions. When we handle them, we are just calling exception by exception, and then we are going to have a statement. I'm going to show you an example in how to do or how to handle these exceptions in the next slide. Well, here, this is a common example of how to declaring and put exceptions. We are declaring a variable here called extra point, and then we are declaring an exception here, null extra point alert. When we select an extra point from the variable that we declared before from students, from a table from students, we are just where the number of the student or the ID, we can say 4325. If the extra point is null, then we are going to raise that null extra point alert. And the exception will be when the null extra point alert, then we are going to print something like this student deserves an extra point, because the null is going to tell us that this student doesn't have any extra point. Okay, so what about handling exceptions? As I told you, when we raise them, in here in this example, we have the exception name, and then we have to have a handler. The handler is going to be a sequence of a statement after that, and we are going to have those every time we have an exception. Here we are going to say what is going to happen when we catch those exceptions. Okay, here we have an example of what I was telling you. We have a customers, and here an ID with an address and a name. We are defining an exception here that is invalid ID. So if the customer ID is going to be more than 0, then we are going to raise the exception, like the invalid exception here. If we don't catch the exception, we are going to go on with the program that is going to be select name and address from the customer table, and then we are going to put to print out the name and the address. But what if we raise the exception? That's where we have the end if, and when we have the invalid exception, then we are going to print something like it must be greater than 0. But we don't have any data there. We are going to print something like not such customer. but we can handle another one. When we have not invalid or not data found, we can print something like just error, just to say that there was an error, but we are not handling that exception because we are just considering two statements here that will be invalid and no data found. Well, just to finish this part, these are some examples for predefined exceptions. We have the exception name. We have the Oracle error. That when you have the exception here, you have a number there, and then we have a little description how these exceptions are raised or when are they raised. For example, for the course already open, the one that we were talking about last week, it's the program attempts to open a already open cursor, so you're going to see in your screen the cursor already open. There are a lot of these examples that you can see more, but I think those are those very common examples of errors in Oracle. So thank you.
And right now, I'll go ahead and talk about the stack functions, which will end the presentation. The first thing I really wanted to mention about stack functions before I really get into the bulk of what the UTL call stack package is and the format error backtrace function is that the exception stack is a first in, last out data structure, which means that the first error thrown is the last one to be displayed. And so we kind of know the basics of that. So let's go to the UTL call stack package. With the UTL, give me 1 second. The UTL, you pretty much basically get the dynamics of all these functions right here. And so you can see like the list. I got this actually from our book. And so here you kind of see the depth, and you also see the error messages that are displayed. And so for example, the error depth, this function returns the number of errors in the current error stack. And I had an example of code, but I can't currently find it. If it returns the error code of 1, that means it returns 0. And if it returns an error code of 2, then it's 2 errors, and so forth. And so that's kind of the basics of the UTL call stack package. And let's see. Also, the UTL call stack package provides an interface for the PL/SQL programmers to obtain information about current executing programs, including the subprogram name from the dynamic and lexical stacks and the depths of those stacks. Individual functions return subprogram names, unit names, owner names, addition names, and the line numbers for given dynamic depths. And that's kind of what I talked about before with the dynamic depths. And so the format error backtrace, kind of go a little bit more about that. I had an example. If A to B to C, say we have that example, you can kind of see here in the code. If you go from A, B to C, and if the exception's at C, then it'll end at C. So really, that's where it'll start from. If the exception was at A, then it'll end at A. And if it's at A, that means there's 3 steps that we need to go back to, and that will be the exception. And so really, that's what the format error backtrace really is in its simplest form. And that's our presentation.